Hey yo guys, what's going on? It's been a very, very long time, and I believe since the Macho Man passed away since I made a video, and well, lots happened. Obviously in both wrestling and MMA, and this video will be an MMA video. I know a lot of people probably want to know my thoughts on CM Punk, but it basically I know it was awesome, and now it seems to be kind of cooling off, and I miss Raw last week. But anyways, the point of this video is, I think the best way to sum it up is, to the UFC, don't be scared, homie. Like, they pull Nick Diaz out of the fight with George St.Pierre because he missed some press conferences and media appearances. Now, granted, this stuff is very important for building a fight, especially a fight like this where you have a super babyface in George St.Pierre and one of the biggest heels in the sport in Nick Diaz. But to pull him from just for missing some press conferences and media appearances, I mean, there's going to be a bunch more. I mean, why are we pulling him the fight? It seemed like he was going to make the trip over and be there for a press conference. He says that I don't know. You never know with Nick Diaz, but he seemed like he was gonna be there. Like, you're pulling Nick Diaz away from this fight for really a silly reason. It's not like he's tested positive for marijuana or any performance enabling or performance enhancing drug. He missed some press conferences. Hey, we miss stuff at work sometimes, and we get some slack cut. I mean, I've been late for a shift, and I got, some slack cut. You'd think the UFC would cut Nick Diaz some slack, considering the man was about to, his Strikeforce contract was done, he was about to try boxing, and, for a guy that has the hands he does in MMA, and has had the experience with, I believe it's Andre Ward in the realm of boxing, he could be successful in that. So they offer him this fight, which is, obviously a cash load of money. It's a title fight against, probably the biggest star in the company in George St.Pierre. A fight that the real true hardcore fans have been asking for since St.Pierre, let's face it, has cleared out that welterweight division. And we just take it away from us for a silly reason. Like, I don't see the point in taking away this fight. Now, the replacement for the fight I'm happy with. I'm very happy for Carlos Condit. I love Carlos Condit as a fighter. He's a great guy. He's going to make this a good fight, but I don't know if he's going to push the pace that a Nick Diaz will. Nick Diaz, he could fight out in your backyard for a nickel and a sandwich, and he would just do it because he loves to fight. And that's what I respect about him. St. Pierre hasn't fought a guy like Diaz, I don't think in ever in the UFC. So this was a real interesting fight. You have a lot of guys say, oh, I'm going to push the pace on St. Pierre, and they just back up. Nick only knows one way, and that's full-born go. And it's not like Nick hasn't pulled upsets before in the sport, but back at UFC 47 when he knocked out Robbie Lawler, who, Robbie Lawler was one of the UFC golden boys back then, and then when he, submitted Takanori Gomi back at Pride 33. I mean, that was an upset. So I don't care what anyone says. Sure, the decision was reversed or whatever, but he still won that fight in my mind. This is a bad move. I mean, this card was really, really stacking up well. It had a great co-main event with Condit and Penn, and I thought, if Condit really needed the Penn victory to be officially the #1 contender. I mean, Carlos Condit has beat some good guys in the UFC. He's beaten Jake Ellenberger, who's going to take on Jake Shields in a couple weeks, I think. He beat the Stun Gun last fight. He survived against Rory McDonald. But, I mean, the Dan Hardy victory, I don't know how we could really be too impressed. I mean, Dan Hardy was really getting this title shot because he was the best welterweight to come out of England, and that's really why he got that title shot. Let's be real. He had no chance in hell of winning that fight. I just don't think that he deserves it at the moment without having the Penn victory. That's what I say. I mean, when we looked at how that card it went from a couple great heavyweight fights. You had the Condit Penn match, which is a super solid co-main event, and especially since Penn's coming off the Fitch draw, and then you had a great fight that every fan wanted to see. Every true fan of the sport has wanted to see since St.Pierre has, I believe, since what St.Pierre fought Koscheck, or even later than Koscheck. I'm drawing a blank at the moment. I just don't think that this is a great move for the company. Now, they've announced some fights coming up that, interest me. Overeem and Lesnar back for UFC 141. And as well, the next Toronto show's main event will be Big Nog taking on Frank Mir, which is, I'm happy to see that fight again. Don't get me wrong. The recent news that's come out of the UFC, with the exception of this, I've been proud of. I'm not trying to hate on Dana White, and I'm not trying to be a Nick Diaz mark. But I think Nick Diaz has gotten a lot of crap thrown at him that he doesn't necessarily need to have thrown at him, and this situation doesn't really help anything. Like, Dana's showing all this love to Nick at the Strikeforce show just because he's taking on Paul Daly, and then, you're coming to build the fight, and then it's off because it's really something silly. Like, couldn't there be any other way? And I mean, I know they were setting up a primetime show for this. I think if he would have done the primetime show, just look how the primetime show is set up. There's no Q&A or anything, really. It's more, mugging for the camera, and I think Diaz is comfortable in that kind of a realm. There's no questions being thrown at him. If you've seen a Nick Diaz interview, he's not speaking English, he's not speaking Spanish, he's speaking gibberish. That's what he's speaking, and I think that realm would have been there. Just Nick Diaz just being Nick Diaz. There's no one throwing questions at him. I think it would have worked that way, and it would have been a great way to build this fight up. And Nick wants to fight. St.Pierre wanted to fight. St.Pierre now says that Condit's a beggar test. I don't know about that. I mean, Condit has more power in his hands than Diaz, but Diaz has maybe the best striking, at least top 5 striking in the sport of mixed martial arts. Let's be real. And a serious ground game. That's what really intrigued me. And now we don't get it. I'm happy for Condit. Feel so sorry for Nick Diaz, because where's he gonna go now? Doesn't look like the UFC. The UFC looks like they're about to cut him again. They probably will. And he probably should go back to Strikeforce. I mean, he's technically still their champion. But Strikeforce is now owned by Zuffa, so why? Bellator, they're making progressions to make the move to Spike. Probably sometime by 2012, they will be on there now with the prelims airing on Spike. Bama's not going to really cut it. I can't believe Nate Marquardt decided to go to Bama. Bama's great for England, but, no. I don't know where he's going to go. Maybe boxing, why not? Give it a try. I mean, it would be great, especially on a Showtime type show. But this is a real mistake that the UFC has done, and it makes me believe, are they scared, homie? So that's really it for me in this video. I'm out. Peace.